Hi, everyone. Welcome to truthcourt.net, home of the Internet Court of Truth. We're happy to see you here today, and we thank you very much for coming and giving us a chance to showcase our project. As you may recall from watching these before, the Internet Court of Truth and Truth Court is here to help you make sense of dubious claims that you might have heard on the Internet. We offer a platform that provides some tools that let you scrutinize statements or claims that you've heard and determine their authenticity. The way it works is very similar to a traditional civil court, a Western style civil court. That means there's a plaintiff and there are jurors. In operation, the first thing that needs to happen is to spot a claim that you may be concerned about or unclear about, or think that it needs a little bit further exploration. Once you've done that, head over to truthcourt.net. If you're not a member, sign in. It's very simple. It takes just a short time and it's free. And then once you're signed in, you can file a case acting as a plaintiff, stating whether or not you believe that claim that you're concerned about is truth or a lie. Then you will put some information in about the claim, and you will respond to 8 universal verdict questions about this claim. And these questions are designed to dissect the truth or the falsehood of the statement that you're talking about. You need somebody to act as jurors, so the next step is to invite some folks to be your jurors, and the system will help you set up an invitation with everything that they need to become a juror. You invite as many people as you want, but the first 8 can participate as jurors, and they will act as jurors on your case. When they accept being a juror on your case, they're going to be asked to answer the exact same 8 questions about the statement as you answered. So everybody's on the same page. When it's all over, you're going to discover what your jurors think about your claim. You're going to gain some insight into their reasoning. I think you will probably be surprised as well. Also, once you've finished with it, you have the option of sharing your trial's results on social media. It's very simple. All you got to do is click a button and you can go to whatever platform you use and share your case. If you've had one run at it and you had a group of jurors give you some answers and you'd like to maybe change your case a little bit or retry it with a different group of people, that's very easy to do also. So if you want a do-over, all you need to do is click a button on the system. It will set you up a new case based on the one you just did. You can tweak the details, you can keep it the same, you can invite different people, so there are more options there, so you don't have to re-enter everything if you want to continue working with one particular topic. Just so you know, Truth Court is a platform that provides a tool for you to get into whether something is true or false. We don't influence the content of anything. All we do is provide the platform. The outcomes that jurors and you put into the system, they're yours and yours alone. We don't have anything to do with that. So for a detailed procedure, run on over to truthcourt.net. You'll find some links there to some previous trials and on the homepage and some other information. So go on over there and do that if you can. Now, today, what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to run a case that I have put in, and we're going to see how that all works. And I have some jurors here with me on Zoom, and we're going to talk about a case that I did. And my jurors are going to give us their opinions of this particular case. As soon as I find it, there it is. Okay. So you should all be seeing at this point the case information page of the Internet Court of Truth. And the title that I'm giving this particular case is based on a story that I read in NPR. And I'm calling it, Can Ant Behavior Be Applied to Swarm Robotics? It sounds esoteric. It's pretty interesting, though. It's not all that weird. If you take a look at the screen on the left-hand column, you see a column named Status. That tells you where we are with the trial, what's happening. The trial's in progress. We have 47 minutes before it closes. Here's the conference link for the Zoom link that I can put in a case when I file it, so my participants can be on Zoom with me. 3 jurors have accepted to my invitation. 2 of them have finished their verdicts. Over here on the right-hand column, you see the verdicts. These are the 8 questions. We'll get into them in a minute. But in the middle are the details of the case. So I'm going to talk to you a few minutes about that and give a rundown of what this case is all about. First of all, I've named it, can ant behavior be applied to swarm robotics? As a category for this, it's a lessons from nature kind of case. And here in something called accusation, this is about the statement that I've read that I want to discuss with everyone today and get some opinions on. A recent NPR article, that's a typo, it should say NPR, not NPT. A recent NPR article claims that Army ants use collective intelligence to build bridges and that robots might be able to learn from this ant behavior. Well, after reading the article, I came to the conclusion that the article and possibly the researchers who are being reported on in the article tend to gloss over several problems with using ant behavior. They leave a number of issues unaddressed. One particular point of contention that I found was that the article overlooks a fundamental feature of ant behavior and cognition. The idea here is that we're going to use Army ants' ability to build bridges over things, which is a remarkable fact of nature. They can do this. That the article says, and the researchers say, that this type of behavior that ants use might be applicable to robotics, that using swarm robotics in particular, where something is controlling a number of different bodies. Well, there's a big difference between what ants do and what robotics does. And generally, there's a big fundamental difference that I thought of anyhow. Maybe I'm wrong, and my jurors, I'm sure, will tell me. But ants, when they build a bridge over something, when they're building a bridge to do something, each ant is an independent, autonomous operator. But in robotics, especially swarm robotics, they're usually controlled by a single central processing unit. There's a single processor controlling a bunch of different slave units, if you will. But with ants, it's a different deal altogether. Each ant is an independent operator. So that's one of the issues that I had with the article. I cut and pasted the article into chat, asked chat GPT to provide a summary for me of the article. And here it is. And it says that the article explores remarkable collective intelligence of Army ants and building bridges to navigate obstacles. And then it talks about the researcher and what the work is and how they talk about, they say a number of things in the article. For instance, they say that the ants collectively make decisions about when and where to build bridges, weighing the costs and benefits for the colony. I had a lot of problem with that statement. That's anthropomorphism in the extreme, but we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. And so the article draws parallels between collective decision-making of ants and human engineering challenges, and suggests that insights from ant behavior could be applied to swarm robotics. Okay, well, I think, yes, it's possible, but the article really does a poor job of exploring the limitations of that type of thinking. And also it does, and I'm not sure if it's the article or the researchers that are missing the boat here. So I have a critique here that I have put into the system for my jurors to read. It talks, and my critique of the article follows here several different points that I think the article is lacking in. Anthropomorphism is one of them. Where the ants collectively weigh the costs and benefits, comparing them to neurons in a big moving brain. Well, I'm sorry, folks, but ants do not collectively weigh the costs and benefits. This is a behavior that's a result of, I think one of my jurors has said already, 150 million years of evolution. it's not, they don't think like humans. They don't weigh in costs and benefits. That's a human thing, not an ant thing. So I think that's a problem. Um, they're just looking at one particular behavior of army ants. Army ants do a lot of amazing things, and so there are several ways that several things about ant behavior that the researchers aren't considering, and that may impact very strongly the applicability of their behavior to robotics. So I think that's another problem with the article and or the research. Is it applicable to robotics? Well, I'm not so sure. Maybe it is. I mean, there's probably some insight that can be had from it that can be picked up on robotics. But I don't think the article explores the challenges to doing this. It's not going to be as straightforward as the article makes it seem. That okay, we can just look at ants, and then all of a sudden our robotic swarm technology will improve. I think that that's a little bit simple-minded. There's no critique here of alternative perspectives that brings up some of these limitations in the article or the researchers. I haven't heard too much about that. A little bit is mentioned, but the article seems to gloss that over. One other big problem I have is they looked at army ants, but they generalized to all ant species. And ant behavior is extremely varied. It's not similar. Every species isn't the same, and what army ants do is different than fire ants or some of the other ants that you see that exhibit very different kinds of behaviors. And the article seems to not recognize that. And I think it oversimplifies swarm intelligence. Yeah, it's a fascinating and magnificent thing that ants do, but they don't necessarily follow through that it's going to be all that useful to swarm robotics. Now, again, I know here at the end, it's important to note these points don't invalidate the research. It's really good research, and the potential applications, there may be some. But I think there are areas that readers would benefit from additional context or consideration of other perspectives. So that's my story. That's my case. And I have it here under accusation. And this is set in here so that my jurors can read it and find out what I think about this. Down below here, I have something called markup. And this is the title of the article, if I'm not mistaken, or at least a quote from the article. It says the collective decision-making of ants also has implications for human technology. Now notice that it's highlighted in blue. I have the option of highlighting it in red or in blue or not highlighting at all. Well, I'm highlighting it in blue because I think there is a certain element of truth to it. Sure, there's got to be some implications for human technology, but I object to how it was done. Now, the URL here at the bottom, this is where the NPR story is found, so my jurors can click on this and read the whole article at their leisure. Moving over to the right-hand column, these are my questions. These are the answers to my questions. The first one, is it the truth? Now you're looking, notice if you're looking at these color bars, the color bars are indicating what my jurors are saying. In other words, if you were to mentally divide this color bar up into four, there are 3 jurors and me, that would be 4. There would be 4 blue tabs there. And you see they're all blue. So blue means yes, red means no, yellow means, orange means I don't know. So it looks like all the jurors are agreeing with me. They're saying, yes, it is the truth. So let's take a look at my answer and we'll look at some of theirs as well. My answer, is it the truth? I say yes. Note, though, I'm only 25% confident that it's the truth. Yeah, I suspect there is something to be had with this research that can be used by robotics, but I'm not very confident that there's a lot. And my text here says, while this claim probably has some truth content, there are many other factors that might affect or limit its usefulness as a model for robotics. Is it the whole truth? I say no. I'm about 75% sure that it's not the whole truth. There are several issues that the article and possibly the researchers don't address. Is it nothing but the truth? Again, I say no. I'm about 90% confident of this. While the research is interesting, many mitigating factors may limit or qualify its usefulness as a model for robotics. So I think that's not addressed by the article. What is the deceit? Is there a deceit in this blue phrase here? Well, and in the article, my answer is the deceit is that army ant behavior is a sound model for human technology. I don't think it's that sound of a model. It certainly has some things to contribute. But again, as I say here below, the challenges of coordinating large numbers of autonomous entities in a robot swarm may well involve complexities beyond what is observed in ant colonies. Remember, in ant behavior, each single ant is an independent autonomous operator. That's not the case in robotics. They're all controlled by a central, usually by a central processor. Okay. And is the deceit or truth intended? I don't know. I'm unclear whether the research or the article is myopic. So I don't really know the answer to that. I'm about 50% confident. What's the motivation? I think the motivation of the article and the researchers is to be informative. But I think both the research and the article, neither of them were completely successful in being informative. I think they fell down. What's the social acceptability of the truth or lie? I say it's acceptable. Notice I'm only 20% confident in that answer. I think it's only about 20% acceptable. And I say it's only marginally acceptable to make these claims without positing the existence of a number of other qualifying factors. This verges on poor journalism and maybe short-sighted research. I don't think it was NPR at its finest. What label would improve the social acceptability? I think if you saw this thing over here in blue that I highlighted, if you had a little label beside it that said this is true but misleading, I think that would alert readers to the fact that there may be some truth here, but there may be something else going on. The article or the researchers should have made a better effort to broaden the scope of their report on this subject. All right, so those are my 8 answers. So we can quickly take a look at others' answers if we want. But before I do that, I'd invite my jurors, if any of them wish, to make comments if they have any about this particular case. Anybody have anything to say before I go over the verdicts?
So in robotics, there is a pretty massive successful use of this. I don't know if y'all can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Which is in for painting large ships. They have masses of small robots that communicate with each other as to where the robot should go to complete the job of derusting and painting ships and when they're being repainted. And so one of the biggest areas where that's done is in Spain, in Portugal. I can't remember if it was Portugal or Spain. But those use the equivalent of small independent robots that communicate with each other as to how the robots should be distributed. And also, if you do kind of the math works out that it gives you coverage over the entire ship. In other words, the local communications can give you coverage over the whole large ship.
Are those coordinated, Bob, by a master brain?
Yeah, it says go.
That's all it says. It's just go. It doesn't tell them.
Yeah, well, you have to configure it for what the overall objective is. So the way it's been explained to me by the people who did it was there are layers of operations that need to take place, and for some ships you don't do some of the layers. So to the extent that you don't need derusting operations or deep derusting operations. no ant is deployed that could do that. But not in the sense in which this article would have talked about it. And this is a highly successful. I don't know the number of places it is around the world, but it was so successful it really never made the literature. It just got picked up.
Do they paint the outside of the ships, or
That's what painting a ship means.
yeah? But I'm just curious. How do they? Are
Oh,
they
what's a ship made out of? What's a ship made out of?
metal? Of course.
No, it's made out of a ferro iron.
So they stick to the hull by magnetic power?
Absolutely. They just have magnets.
Huh.
The magnets crawl over. That's the reason it's so reliable, is that as long as the external part of the ship is magnetic, they can crawl over anything they need to crawl over.
Wow, incredible.
And they deploy them in large numbers to get the job done faster, and they do the financial weighting based on how much is this going to cost me to put a man up there doing it, which is what they had to do before.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine that these things beat men doing it all
Sure.
over the board. Okay. And then there's the need to go back for more paint or for new brushes or whatever they've got to do. And they have to go back. They have to go to where they can find, quote, the robots can find nutrients to do their job. But that is an area that there's a very large, I mean, I don't know the size of it in billions of dollars, but it's a very large scale, successful application of not building bridges, but repainting tankers and things. You know, big, not little tiny ships. These are big ships.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in dry dock. They're in for repainting essentially, which has to be done. The ocean is never stops, and you can't completely block the action of the ocean on the surface of ferrometal. And so
Okay.
So there's sort of an exception.
Very good, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, and that's an interesting comment coming from you. For our viewers out there might not know that, but Bob was a founding director in the Robotics Institute at Carnegie Mellon. So there's an opinion from somebody who knows what the heck they're talking about. So thank you for that, Bob. That was cool.
And is also not surprised because it really never made the literature. It literally was done. A whole bunch of people in robotics and universities around the world did this as consulting. They didn't do it as one of their written up projects for academics because there was so much money in it. And they wanted, and nobody saw a problem. And they discovered there were financial problems in the sense of these are not terribly cheap robots, but they're cheaper than people.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Bob. That's great information. All right, folks. Anybody else?
Yes, Frank. I think some of the critique about the sloppiness of this article is well placed, and I have a sense in a way that as the behavior of the army ant was decomposed, the observers, the researchers, sort of looking for a way to characterize the behavior, the kind of anthropomorphic bias that you talk about sort of creeped in. And if you take that perhaps weakness in the way they approached it, and you take the other end where you have robotics with swarm intelligence stochastic search algorithms, and also the stuff that was kind of developed from the bottom up to maximize these systems. They kind of were trying to bridge these things. I think there was a kind of a bias in there where they already knew where they were going and they were just trying to get there. And it made the science somewhat sloppy. It may be true that what they are asserting would come to pass, but they hardly did themselves any favors in the way they went about presenting it. And so it kind of taints it. And that's what's unfortunate, because they may be right, but they sure as hell didn't establish that in the way that they presented this information in the article.
Yeah, I agree with you. And like I said earlier, I'm not sure if it was the way the article was written or if it was the actual research. I didn't actually read the primary study, so I don't know. But there was a deficiency there for sure.
It could be the journalism.
Could be the journalism. I don't know. Maybe we have somebody saying, okay, I got to get an article on this by 4:30 this afternoon, so let's get this one up. I don't know the answer to that.
They are in the real Army area. I've actually seen the drone wars at Comdex in Las Vegas, where they bring in groups and they war teams of drones against other drones, and those are largely local intelligence with a goal to take a goal. Okay. And but and then there's a lot of work in where people have published stuff. And then the other place that has been published in the painting area, interestingly, was Takeo Kanata in the mid '80s. He built a bee swarm that did painting, but it was a failure, because it was a nice illustration. He probably published it, but it was a commercial failure because he was trying to paint things like just external objects or something. You'd put them on tables and it would paint everything in the room, and that didn't have the commercial success that painting ships had. But I'm sure it was some of the literature. I don't know, but it's almost impossible it wasn't some of the literature that was used when the commercial guys decided to investigate the paint, the ship painting stuff. Sorry, some of this stuff's coming back slow.
Okay, very good, very good. All right, folks, if that's it for comments, I'd like to go over quickly some of the other verdicts here, some of the other jurors' verdicts. I see over here in the left-hand column that I have 3 accepted and 3 jurors finalized, so everybody's done working on their verdict. So let's take a look at a couple of them. Okay. First of all, you notice that my verdict is up here. I'm the plaintiff, and you see this little icon with the copy sign and the word yes beside it. If you look down below, you see icons by jurors 1, 2, and 3, but it's not identical to mine. So that means that they agreed with me. They said yes, but they didn't say the same things I said. So let's see what they said. Juror number 1 said yes, and with no supporting text, 50% confidence. Juror number 2, let's see what juror number 2 says. Okay, this is interesting. Juror number 2 also says yes, but he says this: despite having no brain, slime molds can find the best paths to food. When placed in a maze containing food at one end, Physarum can branch into every nook and cranny, doing an exhaustive search, and solve the maze. Once it finds the food, the branches that did not locate the food retract, leaving behind a trail of slime. This slime serves as a signal telling the mold not to go in that direction in the future. That's very interesting. Ants have rudimentary brains and learn what they do by reacting to pheromones left behind by other foraging ants who have found food and by touching them. Each ant applies appropriate, simple decision rules to limit information about a single feeder or trail, and none has a synoptic picture of the whole problem. These rules vary among myriad species of ants in a wide range of environments and have been selected. This is evolutionary selected over about 150 million years of evolution. The article is a fascinating attempt to ferret out the rules of one species and engaging in one task, bridge building. It's misleading when it talks of collective weighing of costs and benefits without stressing collective, selected by evolution. The implication for technology will only be accessible once discovered sets of simple rules are simulated and tested, perhaps as a fallback standard operating procedures. Okay, that's a very interesting answer. Yes, and the ant behavior is a result of a lot of evolutionary figuring out the situation-based rules and the chemical and neurological channels of ant-to-ant communication. All right, juror number 3 says, no, it's not the whole truth. The observations are excellent, but the science seems to be a bit sloppy. Is it nothing but the truth? Jurors 1, 2, and 3 all said no. Juror number 1 says no, 45% confident. Juror number 2 says no, 75% confident. Business interest in ant colony research has highlighted the need for some hierarchical problem solving along with crowd-based input. Perhaps swarm robotics will determine that some kind of central CPU will be needed in addition to strictly collective intelligence. Juror number 3 says no, while research is interesting, many mitigating factors may limit or qualify its usefulness. That's my answer, but with a different confidence level. What is the deceit? Juror number 1 says, the deceit is that the lie is factually true. Well, okay. Okay, I can get that. And juror number 2 and 3 copied my answer exactly. You can tell by the exact same icon. Is the deceit intended? Jurors number 2 and 3 agreed with me. Juror number 1 says no, it's not intended. What's the motivation? Everybody agreed with me verbatim that the motivation is to be informative. What's the social acceptability? Jurors number 1 and 2 agreed with me. Juror number 3 says, also agreed with me, but says, this may be acceptable as journalism, but absolutely unacceptable as science. Yeah, I agree with that. It's barely acceptable as journalism too, juror number 3. Okay, what label would improve the social acceptability? Jurors 1 and 2 said the same as I did. This is true but misleading. Juror number 3 said also the same thing. Article reports some interesting facts and raises some intriguing questions, but does a poor job of investigating and answering those questions. So yes. All right, so that's the case. That's the article that I dissected, a statement about it. I got a bunch of opinions from some very very smart people here that made some very interesting observations. So I'm happy to see all that, and that's how Truth Court works. I put in something, I get some people to tell me what they think about it, and we all learn in the process. So I would invite you all out there in the world to do the same. Go to truthcourt.net, sign up, become a member, become a plaintiff, find something you want to try, bring it to court, invite some folks to give you some opinions about what they think about it. All right, thanks everybody. I appreciate your time and look forward to talking to you again about something else. See you next week.